does freedom mean to you? What does it mean to be free? Welcome to another Gene Key contemplation. Welcome to my channel. We're going to contemplate Gene Key 55 today. This one is unique. As you will see, the shadow is victimization, and the gift is freedom, and the city is freedom. This is the only gene key out of all of the 64 that only have 2 words. The gift and the city are the same. And the other thing that makes this gene key very, very special is that it is the starting place of this mutation that we humans are undergoing as I speak. This mutation that's happening at our solar plexus. And this gene key is the same story for all other gene keys. This journey from victimization to freedom as we ascend through the frequency bands. So in all of the 64 gene keys, the victim mindset is the shadow. When we're in our shadow, we are being a victim, whether we can see it or not. And the dilemma with this victimization is that we have a need for external validation. And in this victim state, we project, we blame, we complain, and we feel like we are just victims of our reality. And the journey out of this to freedom, which we'll dive into, and of course I'd love to hear again for you, what does freedom mean? This journey of freedom is a transformational process that takes its own time, and it's really becoming free of suffering. It's not becoming free of challenge. I think that we like challenge as humans, but it's to start to understand where our true power lies. And when we start to understand that, and that there really is no right or wrong, that we're all here to learn who we really are and to express that in the world, and to take self-responsibility for our own patterns, our own victim patterns, which we all have. It's part of being incarnated as a human, is to come in with victim patterns. And part of freedom is just being able to observe those in ourselves and then transforming them. And ultimately, as Richard Rudd speaks in this audio, we're all looking for freedom from suffering. And we look for that in all sorts of ways. From the victim, from the shadow, we will project this feeling of freedom onto money, onto a relationship, onto a job, onto a status, recognition. And we think, that thing out there is going to give me freedom, when really the journey is an inside job. And this is the story again for all of the gene keys. And I think I've been talking recently in my contemplations about the surrender experiment, and just reading that again for the second time and seeing the parallel of the story that Michael Singer shares for his journey of the surrender experiment, and how he basically realized that his mind had all these desires and wants and not wants. And when he got up in his mind, it affected his emotions, and then it affected his whole world out there. And he began to realize that his journey was about just relaxing behind all of that noise of the mind and the chaos of the emotions. And that's the part of the contemplative path that is the journey of the gene keys, is to create space, to create more pauses in our day, to create more spaciousness around our emotions so that they can just be, and we can learn from them, and we can let them go, and we start to create more inner calm inside ourselves, and then we start to see that reflected outside of ourselves. And to the victim, we believe in the victim state that the outer world is what is creating the inner world. And so we feel like victims. And, the reality is that when we start to embrace this idea of freedom and surrendering, and that there's a natural flow to life that we can let go of control and be pulled along, then we start to feel more free, and we start to realize that our inner world is actually creating our outer world. And this is a part of the mutation that is in our solar plexus, this future human that Richard Rudd speaks about, is our ability to digest our emotions that have been pushed away, projected on others for so long, and we start to digest them. And as we do this, we create clarity in our solar plexus, and we start to realize that our minds is not the one here to make the big decisions in our life, but rather life itself has a plan. And when we surrender, we're sort of pulled by our solar plexus on a path that is very unique to us, and we feel that clarity. We feel a sense of clarity and ease in decision making, because it's almost as if decisions are being made for us. Richard Rudd speaks about the Wu Wei, the art of doing nothing. And he says it's not that we do nothing, literally don't do anything, but that we aren't trying. We aren't trying to add something. We don't feel like we're incomplete. We don't feel like we need answers from out there. We're literally just surrendered to the flow, surrendered to our natural being without resistance. And that is touching this idea of freedom. Have you ever experienced that just feeling of flow, of being pulled and seeing synchronicities that sort of give you these clues that, oh my gosh, there's something so much greater than my little mind could have planned? I'd love to hear any stories you want to share. Put them in the comments. It is a destabilizing, as Richard Rudd says, this is a very destabilizing gene key, because the world in the victim mindset is literally upside down to the world at the gift or the Siddhic levels. And this future human has to go through that transformation, that great metamorphosis. And I'm finding for myself, like, more of my shadows are being highlighted. I'm able to see them so much more clearly, and I'm really needing to bring a lot of compassion and self-forgiveness. And I use the Ho'oponopono prayer, and I call for grace into my life often, and open to receive that, during the destabilizing part especially, and asking for support during that time as well. And it's not something I do not believe we can do that alone, that journey. And if you've going through that journey, been through that journey, I'd love to hear you also share what are some of your practices for staying grounded and stable, because the victim stance, is very much identified to the ego. And we've heard in so many traditions that we need to drop the ego, and that's how we experience freedom. And a part of the suffering and the perpetuation of suffering is that the suffering makes the ego feel like it's there. It needs, right? The dilemma of that external validation is like, I exist, I am here, and all the different ways we attach to our identity or our role and don't want to let that go, because it literally is a death and then a rebirth. And for me, I also experienced the grieving of the way I thought my life was going to go, and really embraced, to the best of my ability, that letting go period, which lasted a long time. It was a long time. And in a lot of ways, I'm still in the letting go, and the rebirth is coming, like as the spring is coming here, and starting to feel more freedom around my emotions, and again, the clarity of how I used to be, and offering compassion and forgiveness to that part of me as well has been big. I'd love to hear any of your thoughts on these themes. Do you have this gene key in your profile? Let me know, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next video.